The best glassing point isn't always the highest one. It's the one that gives you the best views without you being seen. This is episode 3 of Mapping Muleys, and today we're talking glassing. Specifically, how to find and pin the most effective glassing locations during your e-scouting phase. So let's dive in really quick. Kind of a few tenets I want to go through first of kind of what I think makes a good glassing point. First off is elevation. Now, I know sometimes it's okay to glass up or glass down, but I personally think the majority of the time it works for most hunters to um, be able to glass at a similar elevation that the deer are. And so that's kind of going to be the first thing I look for. The second thing is going to be visibility of those bedding and feeding zones. Third thing is going to be taking into consideration the morning and evening sun direction. And then fourth is going to be kind of a conglomerate of things, but thinking about wind, access, and comfort if the glassing is kind of your main hunting strategy. So let's dive in here and kind of talk through a few things that not only am I looking for, but then I'm trying to think through how am I going to approach e-scouting for my mule deer hunt. So first off is I always like to use 3D, a 3D map. I'm a big fan of GOHUNT maps. If you're not using a 3D map, I would highly consider that, just because a 2D map doesn't give you everything. You can see a basin, but you're not going to know if you can see that basin from a certain ridge unless you have that 3D version. Um, Another thing I kind of try to look at while I'm looking for a glassing point or kind of planning some of those pins that I can drop as glassing points is if I am dropping a glassing point or I'm dropping a pin for a ridge that I can glass a basin from, am I able to move down 10, 20, 30 yards on that ridge and be able to move up that ridge as I glass without being seen? And I don't want to be skylined. And so that's kind of like another thing I really look for, because those bucks are really smart. Take it one step further, those elusive ghost bucks, 200 plus inch bucks, are even smarter. And so just being able to do everything I can to avoid those mistakes, to give them a sense of where I'm at, that's what I'm going to take advantage of. And then I kind of think about backup glassing points. If there's weather, if there's pressure, if the wind changes, kind of where am I going to go next if I see anything that's going to push them. So let's walk through a real life example here. Let me pull up the map and let's talk through it. So I have this, this setup here, and let me exit out of here. I have this setup, and we have this ridge slash basin that has historically had some big bucks in it. I would say after this first finger ridge is kind of where I start to see the action. Kind of up in these peaks with this scattered timber on the side. They'll, like to bed in some of this deeper stuff on the side, but then they'll kind of come out and feed on some of these ridges. Even moving up towards some of this mountain goat terrain that you see up here to be able to feed. So if I look at this, there's a couple ways I can approach this. First, and obviously, is this ridge right here. If I look at this ridge, you can see, you can very clearly see this basin and this ridge that holds bucks. I'm kind of thinking through kind of those four tenets. Okay, I have good elevation. I'm able to see those bedding and feeding zones. I'm able to kind of understand the sun direction, which I'll talk about more here in a sec. The wind, if it's going up the canyon, is going to move it more to the right and out of the area where I think these bucks are going to be. So we'll check on that. And then comfort. So if I'm glassing all day from this area, can I, hop down a few yards and be able to be in some shade during the middle of the day and glass some of those bedding areas? and that's checked off the list. But I want to go back to kind of sun direction exposure. This, as we look at it, I am looking straight east. So as the sun rises in the east over here in the morning, I'm going to be SOL. So what we really need to do is kind of have a plan of what we're going to of how we're going to attack this. So really what I'm going to say is this ridge is going to be a great evening glassing point. It's going to give me good access to be able to get a stock in. But I think for me, those early mornings are really important for mule deer hunting because it gives you a chance to stalk a bedded buck. And that's when I really love to hunt those bucks. Evening time, you can get in a stock, but mornings are just a little bit easier. You can take your time. You're not rushed. Um, you know, obviously you can hike back with a headlamp, but the biggest thing is being able to get a stock in and not feel like you're rushed. So as I look at it, this will probably be my evening glassing ridge. So I can start right here in this saddle and work out and get all sorts of different angles as I kind of move. You can see that I can get different angles here. Now, what about the morning? So I'm going to say, okay, if I usually see bucks about here, let me get up on, whoops, let me see if I can get up on this ridge, maybe on the back side, or maybe still the front side and just kind of use this topography to shade things or to cover me and get a little bit better of an angle. And you can see there's some trees right here and right here, but this allows me to have a better angle on these feeding areas that they'll come into in the morning without really having to give myself away. And I have a good view without having that sun glaring into my eyes. So I think that's one of the most overlooked things as well is a lot of people think, oh, this is a good spot. I can glass, I can see all this area, but they fail to realize that the sun is going to blind them 20 minutes into their glassing session. So really be cognizant of that. And then last thing I kind of want to talk about is an escape zone. So say these bucks blow out of here. What's my plan? You know, I'm going to take a look at this. I'm going to be like, well, if they blow out of here, they kind of go over the top. So maybe I'll follow this ridge or I'll drop down and there's a road down here, come around and see if I can locate those bucks again and then kind of make a plan. There's really not a good spot for us to get to them as this is kind of the main ridge here. If they do go up and over, you know, you could get some vantage points from this little outcrop here, but you know, you always just have to kind of be creative in the West, trying to figure out topography. You know, maybe if I see them blown out of here and the hunters are over here and they kind of go back down, I might go down to the bottom, hike up to the top of this. Not an easy hike at all, but you got to be willing to do what others aren't willing to do. And that might give me a better angle to glass and kind of see where those bucks blew into. So, you know, there's never really one right answer, but as long as you're willing to put in the work and think and be smart about your decisions, then that's going to set you up for success as you kind of go through these e-scouting sessions. And just knowing the terrain and kind of knowing where those escape areas are going to be is going to allow you to be successful as well. So hit a like if this has changed how you think about glassing, and subscribe so that you don't miss episode 4. But we'll see you in the next one. We don't hunt hard, we hunt smart. That is Wildside.